So this is how the IAB defines an impression on an online ad. Okay, a measurement of responses from an ad delivery system to an ad request from the user's browser, which is filtered from robotic activity, and is recorded at a point as late as possible in the process of delivery of the creative material to the user's browser. Closest to the actual opportunity to see specifics below. So basically, guys, as I've said before, when you download a page with an ad on it, that counts as an impression, wherever the ad may be. Now we're in the area now of talking about some of the problems with measurement, right? So how we count an impression is a problem. How we count the video impression is, I would say, let's call it an issue. And now we go to some other problems. I've already touched on this at least once when we talked about social media. But remember back to the beginning of the class when we said, what is a medium? It's between two things. And walls are between two things, aren't they, basically, by definition? Isn't that why you put up a wall, to separate two things? Or separate one thing into two, or whatever the case may be? And are these social media wall anyone can write anything on for the whole world to read? That, by the way, is the Berlin Wall, which you may have heard of. It used to be a barrier between East and West Berlin, between free democratic Germany and communist Russia-controlled Germany. Is a medium, a megaphone, allowing you to say anything that the whole world can hear? And I think you guys know that this is, these are white supremacy people. And what happens is that social media can get involved in helping those people organize and get together. And I'm just going to click a link here from the New York Times back in March. I'm sure many of us have already forgotten what happened here because it was a long time ago. But what I was going to ask you to look at here, I'd hoped, was, let's see if we're getting that link. I'm not sure we are. Let's try this. Okay. You may recall that there was a horrible mosque shooting in New Zealand in March of this year. The Al Noor Mosque, lone white supremacist. He had a video camera on him. I'm assuming it was some kind of GoCam or something. He was streaming the video of his murders on Facebook Live. And New Zealand cracked down and found people who originally got their hands on this video and started sharing it. You can see here, freedom of expression is a legal right in New Zealand. Parameters are more restrictive than our First Amendment. New Zealand's Department of Internal Affairs includes a chief censor, and official has the authority to determine what material is forbidden. So people who intentionally looked at the video the killer sent, if they're New Zealanders, they could face legal consequences for intentionally looking at it. Of course, it was probably seen millions of times around the world. It says Facebook could face new legal issues, not only in New Zealand. The Prime Minister of New Zealand, very capable woman, said, "We cannot simply sit back and accept that these platforms just exist and that what is said in them is not the responsibility of the place where they're published. They are the publisher, not just the postman." Here's someone who's actually arrested in New Zealand. He was one of the few people who originally got and forwarded the video. And he, I believe, spent some time in jail. He was fined. There's someone else they tracked down. Because, of course, many of these things, if people aren't careful and sophisticated, disguising their identities can be tracked. So it's hard to know where the line is drawn. So this talks about far-right content. Facebook under pressure to explain its role and how the video proliferated. They tried to, 200 people watched it live as it occurred, or fewer than 200, by the way. No users reported the post to Facebook's content moderators during a live stream. That would have helped if someone had actually done that, but they didn't. They removed the video minutes after the New Zealand police reached out. The original video was reviewed about 4,000 times before removal. But of course, at least one person was able to record it, and it went on this thing called 8chan, which you may have heard of, and off it went. So, in New Zealand, they have stronger laws about what you look at, etc. So other countries can be different on this particular topic. So there are dangers. What about the principle of free speech? This is the First Amendment, the first change to the competition made by the Congress, very shortly after the original Constitution was written. It talks about Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And this is where we talk about freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And then dangerous content, there were further court decisions that basically said that content that's that composes a threat to the community can be deemed not free speech and taken down. European versus U.S. privacy policy is something you guys should know about. And once again, back to the New York Times. So, some of the things, if you have that one bad night, in Europe you have the right to be forgotten. You can ask search engines to remove links to the news article or on European versions of those sites. In the U.S., you cannot ask them to remove anything. Your bank has been hacked. Any company must notify regulators within 3 days of discovering a breach or face fines for not sufficiently protecting your data. And in the U.S., they can take months to inform us, almost if ever. So getting hacked, companies don't have to inform us right away. They do in Europe. In Europe, you can ask any company for the data they hold on you and what the information is used for. They must hand over the files within a month, although they say it's not always so smooth. In the U.S., there's no rule about that. Child has fallen for video games in Europe. There are no European-wide laws that apply to children's data, and it is an issue. We do have some protection in the U.S. So there are some differences between Europe and the U.S. The issue of privacy is something that states are looking at, as I think I said before, as is the government. Here are media planners' concerns with online advertising as of August 2016. Transparency, so they're not sure what's happening in the purchase of online advertising and what's running. Viewability means, are people really seeing it? So that gets to the issue of, are these real impressions or not? Ad fraud is the bot clicks and the clickbaits and all that kind of stuff. Data privacy, ad blocking, another issue. We haven't talked too much about ad blocking, but you guys I know are very aware of it. Here's some data, again, from Statista, from the library, showing by age group who has used an ad blocker on their mobile phone to prevent websites or apps from displaying ads when you visit them. So it's happening, and this is worldwide data. So there are certainly some issues with internet advertising. Strengths, many. Flexibility, amazing. Targeting of demographic and psychographic groups. Broad reach, given the reach of the internet. Yes, measurability, although as you see, it's not perfect. Weaknesses, it intrudes, almost like a billboard. It intrudes and interrupts you as you're on your journey on the superhighway, especially on the phone, I think. There's a lot of clutter, and metrics are not as good as they should be. So that's our look at overall interactive advertising history and background. The ARPANET, first banner ad on Wired Magazine's website, the fast growth of the internet, worldwide penetration of it. Types of advertising, starting with search, paid and organic or earned, then banners and rich media, which are banners that are animated, video, and the incredible growth of video. We talked about the creating ads, particularly for video, how they really have to get your attention and not bore you and not sell too hard and yet still somehow get the message across. We talked about trends such as programmatic being a huge trend. We talked about strengths and weaknesses. Now, I'm actually going to wrap up this section, and we're going to have this interactive part as kind of a standalone section, and then mobile will be its own little section. So that's what I'm going to do.